Before the video starts, I want to give a quick shout out to Nolan Talks Movies. As most of you know him, he did YouTube, but he is no longer making videos. That's cool. He's on to other parts of life. Happy for him. But recently, he was at Disney World, and he sent me this. He bought it for me. Actually, he was like given an extra one, and he thought to send it to me. Very sweet. Cherish this. Cherish the connections that I've made through this platform. So yeah, this is really, really special to me. Thank you so much, Nolan. And by the way, just so you know, this is a kyber crystal. I can make a lightsaber now. So this is pretty elite. And it gets a spot on the shelf. The Suicide Squad is a fantastic comic book movie. It is
arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest comic book film ever made.
As soon as the credits rolled, which was about 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry, I am late to this, I knew I wanted to make a video on this, but didn't want to just do a standard review. In this video, I want to focus on a certain aspect of this movie while still being able to gush about everything this movie does so well. And that aspect is that this movie should be considered another benchmark in the comic book movie genre, alongside films such as the Avengers movies, Deadpool, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, and many more movies that really have pushed this genre forward. A movie like Endgame would not exist without 21 movies behind it, and that is great. It is exciting. The day I saw Endgame was, honest to God, one of the best days of my life. It was a celebration of comic book media, and I live for that kind of stuff. And when you stop and think about it, the Suicide Squad would also not exist without dozens and dozens of movies behind it, but not in the same way Endgame wouldn't exist without dozens and dozens of movies behind it. The Suicide Squad wouldn't exist without the MCU, classic comic book movies, Deadpool, Birds of Prey, Guardians, and so much more. And I don't mean this as a slight, it is awesome. Watching this movie on my birthday on the biggest and best screen possible was awesome, and it also reminded me of so many different comic book movies, but not in a way like, oh, you are clearly ripping off this movie. It just felt all naturally meshed together. Just like Endgame, this is a celebration of comic book media, just in a different way. And that way is the successful combination of different styles and tones. The way this film builds on its themes, atmosphere, humor, characters, and so on was decades in the making. However, combining styles is a very hard line to walk because it can easily start to feel like a formula. Add this and this to make people happy, and usually it doesn't make people happy. I kind of feel this way about Joker. It's good just in the safest way possible while feeling risky. Thankfully, the Suicide Squad is not like this, but I'm not sure risky is the word I would use to describe the Suicide Squad. But my main point is that it nails combining different styles and tones. That's why I consider it one of the best celebrations of comic book media and another benchmark for this genre. There's movies like the Lego Batman that are celebrations of the genre too, but that is much more tongue-in-cheek and dry humor oriented. Also just straight up on the nose.
I've seen you go through similar phases in 2016 and 2012 and 2008 and 2005 and 1997 and 1995 and 1992 and 1989 and that weird one in 1966.
I adore that movie, don't get me wrong, they're just different. From the get-go, it is a team-up comic book movie, and there has been so many of those. Some good, some great, some no. This is also a team-up movie that you can jump right into. This could be your first comic book movie, and you honestly wouldn't be that lost. It's one of those special comic book movies that's grand but personal and contained, something that Gunn is clearly very good at making. Yes, it is a different day, don't tell anybody. However, in the case of the 2016 Suicide Squad movie, it tried to do the same thing, just did a very bad job. To the point where it just freeze frame on characters and list the reasons why you should care. To say the characters are great in this Suicide Squad movie is the definition of an understatement. A big reason for this is once again the fact that James Gunn had experience getting audiences to love unknown and quirky characters. Long story short, it nails the team-up aspect in a very organic way. And while at the end of the day, Gunn deserves the credit for executing this so well, years of failures and successes with team-up movies led to arguably the best one of all. Speaking of James Gunn, even his control over this project feels like it was decades in the making and a celebration of this genre and all of the crap it has gone through. Far too often, directors' visions are screwed with, but Gunn has said, and you can tell that this is his film. Just in the last 20 months, we have gotten 2 and now 3 DC director-driven projects that have broken so many boundaries. It feels like it just kept building up until the powers that be finally realized that, hey, maybe the reason these movies aren't that great is our fault. And thank God James Gunn had the creative freedom he did while handling a movie with this size and scope. I absolutely hope that projects like The Batman and directors like Matt Reeves aren't having their visions messed with, but there's something about having a project be this grand and having really no restrictions that's so cool. This is an R-rated superhero movie with an Avengers-like plot. It's a match made in heaven. Going back to the styles, like I said, it nails the team-up movie aspect, but it is also enhanced by the quirky and morally gray characters. Aspects that have been done in films such as Birds of Prey and Deadpool, also Joker just in a darker way. Just like Birds of Prey, this film also has some non-linear storytelling, which gives it some personality. However, I do think that it works better from a narrative standpoint in Birds of Prey, but that's besides the point. Touching on the plot real quick, it has the classic, well at this point, classic comic book movie plot, where it ends with our main characters fighting a big bad in a city. However, this time the big bad is a giant starfish, so masterpiece. Plot of this movie isn't anything to write home about, it's just really everything else surrounding it. For example, the fact that this third act is a third act that exists and is able to be silly, serious, and heartfelt all at the same times was once again decades in the making. I wrote on Letterboxd that a testament to this movie's power is the fact that rats attacking a giant starfish made me choke up. If you haven't seen the movie, I'm sure that sounds absurd, but just you wait. But a sequence like this is the combination of two main things. One, a brilliant director, and 2 years of experimenting and taking risk in a genre. Something like this would have never seen the light of day in 2014, 2015. And if it was attempted, it probably would have fallen flat. As it should, this movie is defying the odds. This movie should not work, but man does it. Moving on to something that really shocked me besides the fatalities was the themes. It has some of the themes that you would expect from a ragtag team-up superhero movie, such as finding your people, learning from your past mistakes, and the biggest one being purpose. But the theme I did not expect was the political commentary in this movie. There are two villains in this movie, this and this. The Suicide Squad is one of the best examples I have seen of modern day political commentary woven into a superhero movie. I wouldn't call it subtle, but without spoiling anything, it's very abrupt and in your face, but still in an organic way. And a great embodiment of this theme is the character of Peacemaker. Once again, no spoilers. This movie is honestly a perfect example of how sometimes it's more important how you present the message than the actual message. If you start using white feminist buzzwords, it's over, you lost, no one is taking you seriously.
I beg your misogynistic pardon?
It approaches progressive topics in a way that's not alienating or eye-rollable. Even something like the themes in this movie feels like it was perfected by seeing this genre evolve. It saw Captain Marvel and said, no, we're not doing that again. In conclusion, The Suicide Squad is one of the best comic book movies of all time in my opinions, not in the way I expected. It's not a modern masterpiece crime drama like The Dark Knight, or an insane conclusion like Avengers Endgame. It's something more, and not necessarily in terms of quality. It's a damn good film, don't get me wrong, but at its core, even if it's not trying to be, this is a celebration of comic book movies. Something like this couldn't have been made years ago, and if it was made, it probably wouldn't be good. Years of trial and error and evolution in this genre led to a single, contained, grand project that highlighted and celebrated the best in comic book media.